Okay. We're going to go ahead and call the Public Safety Committee meeting together. It is Wednesday, October the 19th. It is about 1:01, so we're really on time. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Odenberg. Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderman Page.
Present.
Chair Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderman Bosley. I have 6 present. We have a quorum.
Okay. First order of business, we'll take a motion for approval of the minutes of the October 12th meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Odenberg. Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderman Page.
Aye.
Chair Vaccaro.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes.
Okay, we've approved the minutes of the October 12th meeting. We're going to start with the promotions within the fire department. The director and some of those could not make it. We in their whatever, I did give them short notice, but they did say that they would be able to make next week or any other meeting. So what we'll do is I think we're gonna go ahead and do this, and also again probably do it again in another week. But what I'd like to start off with is firefighter Al. He's the president of Local 73, and there's several promotions that just aren't being made. And I thought I would at least ask him to explain, well, how important are the promotions? Are these, are these just promotions just to help a friend out, or are these necessary promotions that are being said on? That my understanding, and having a son that's in the fire department, just not in the city, that these are really important positions for the safety of firefighters. So firefighter Al, why don't you go ahead and just give us a little rundown why you think this is important. We'll go through the committee after that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to the members of the committee. My name is Demetrius Alfred, president of Local 73, representing all the dispatchers, EMS workers, and firefighters in the city of St. Louis. I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to speak to you guys on this particular topic. We've met before, and I believe Dan Clark, who's our Secretary of Treasurer, spoke, and the question is still up in the air from last meeting, why the promotions haven't been made. And we're talking about promotions of fire captains and battalion chiefs. I believe to this date, we're up to 12 or 13 positions that haven't been filled. Mr. Chairman, you asked about the importance of those positions. Those positions are critical to how we perform. Just to give you maybe a little history on it, not history of, but how we operate. The department is a 24/7 operation. And what that means is that these positions, fire captain and battalion chiefs, they're supervisory positions, but they function 24/7. So what we try to do, or what we do is operate off of NFPA 1710. And basically what that says that a supervisor should be on every apparatus, and the span of control is about 4 to 6 members. So what that basically means is that there should be a captain or lieutenant on each apparatus, and then a battalion chief per 4 or 5 companies in the district. And that's actually how St. Louis Fire Department operates. With these shortages, it makes it critical because we're not operating under 1710, and they're not bona fide captains or battalion chiefs in those positions. And also, what we wanted to say is that those positions, it isn't taxing on the citizens of St. Louis. These are budgeted positions that have been approved by the Board of Aldermen, by the ENA, and all entities that approve them. So the money is there, and that's why we're really up in the air and kind of questioning why these promotions are being held up. I can't hear you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I had myself muted. So what we'll do, and I know the importance, and I'll brag just a second because my son is a captain in the fire department out in the county. So I just thought I'd, brag, and I think he has an important job, at least I believe so. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down the list, and if any of the, in fact, and then this way, if any of the older people have questions of you, and then keeping in mind that we are going to go back through this again when we have, both sides of an issue with us too. So let's go down. Alderwoman Davis couldn't make it. Alderwoman Howard. Any questions?
Yes. Good afternoon, Al. How many people do we have waiting for these promotions? And I'm sorry, you might have said that in your opening.
I believe we have 13 positions currently available or open. That would be 12 captain spots and 1 battalion chief. And once that battalion chief is made, would create another spot for captains. Those people are members of St. Louis Fire Department. They include African Americans and females as well.
Have all of these people been tested previously? Are they tested, passed, and vetted?
Yes, ma'am. They have been tested and vetted on the last promotional test that was given. And I will say that test is about 9-10 years old. And we're interested in a new test being given. But until that test is given, these people have been vetted, and they have passed the test, and they're good to go. They're qualified.
Qualified, and have been vetted, like you said, and they're just sitting there in private positions waiting to be promoted. Those that are captains, and the captain is waiting to be promoted to battalion chief.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. And really, you're really hitting on something that we're really concerned about. Well, those people, they are vetted, they have been tested, they're good to go, but they haven't been promoted. So they can be put into those positions on certain apparatuses without being promoted and work out a title. And the problem with that is they're accountable for supervisory actions and are not being paid. So as a union, we're going to be kind of upset about that. But also, what that does is it affects the morale of the total department. Guys are looking to be promoted. They want to work in that vein, do the best job they can. They want to get tested and vetted as well. But once you go through that, and if you're not promoted, things are being held up for whatever an unlikely reason, that affects our morale terribly. And right now we are right there.
So you're saying this test is 9 or 10 years old. Now, have these people been tested and waiting that long?
Yes, ma'am. And let me justify that. They haven't. Okay, the test, if I'm not mistaken, was given in 2013. About 200 of the people passed the test and were vetted. So that list had about 200 people on it, 195, somewhere in there. From 2013 up until now, several members have been promoted, but we've been asking for 3-year testing for years. So we haven't gotten that. The test has been, that list has been, right there and ready, certified. So as we go through the years, we go down a list promoting people that are all been tested and vetted. So the people that are currently waiting right now have been waiting that long, but they were in the middle of the pack.
Okay, so you've worked off the list, but there are still people on that list, and there's still the need that some houses don't have a captain. Is that the situation?
It's not just
Or
the
a
house.
shift?
We put a supervisor on each apparatus, and that's per NFPA 1710 standards. So yes, you're correct that over the years since 2013, we've made about 60 promotions. That's not an average or anything. That's based off of people retiring and things like that. So it may be a year where 5 people get promoted. It may be another year where 11 people are promoted. So from 2013 up until now, we've promoted about 60. And the current people that are waiting for the 13 spots that are available today have been waiting, yes, since 2013.
Okay. So how many people remain on this list?
Now you can't quote me on this, but I'm not looking at the list currently, but I believe
Just
out
a
of
approximation.
But out of 198, if we've done 60, we're right around the mark, about 138, something like that.
That's if no one's left or sought other employment out of that.
Yes, absolutely. If someone sought other employment or retired in a lesser position, then yes, we skipped over and we'll continue down the list. But what's important about that, Carol, is this, is that list is a certified list, meaning everybody that's taken the test has been vetted and are certified, good to go. I can't really say why the list is so old other than we haven't given another test. Now, you've been around for a while, you know what the workings are of giving a test for the St. Louis Fire Department. That means you have to put out an RFP, get a company to do so. They have to do job assessment and things like that. It takes about 2 years to give a test. That's why we're looking for 3-year testing, try to keep things rotating in a way that we get, qualified people, the best people all the time. But that just doesn't happen in St. Louis Fire Department. And, the test before this 2013 test, I think that list lasted about 10 years, or 12 years. So it's a tough deal. It's really tough on your morale.
Let me ask you this. Now, if, say, we were ready to give another test, what happens to those people that are currently on this qualified list? If
If
they
they're
lose
selected,
their place, or they move up, or it's
no.
Okay.
What happens is that list stays certified until another test is completely taken and people have passed it, been vetted, and another list has been put out or certified. Then the old list goes away. Those people that are on the current list, they are able to take the new test. They may fall where they fall depending on who they're up against and things like that. But they don't just stay on that list. There is a way we say it. You can die on a list per se, meaning that you were in the top 5 on an old list and a new list came out and you retook the test, but you didn't score as good as you did on the last test. So maybe, you went down further. We call that dying on a list, but it happens.
Okay. So basically, if we have the new test and we do, I understand, and I don't want to poke the bear here, but now I understand there's been some rumblings about whether this test, the previous test, was fair and equitable to everyone. Is that true?
There have been some rumblings. There has been a court decree between the city and fire that basically talks about this new test, that we have coming up. Some of the parameters will be changed. So yes, there have been some grumblings. What I will say is where we are right now today, the old list has a pretty good mixture, like I mentioned, of women and men on there that's waiting to be promoted right now. And if I can say this again, that those positions have been put into the budget. You guys passed it and it's ready to go. So there's really no real reason why we are not promoting.
So we just haven't put the people in place.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
We just have neglected to place the people that are next on the list in those positions.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not a matter of money. It's not a matter of not knowing who. It's just that it hasn't been done.
Yes, ma'am. And again, I'll say they were vetted, certified, they are good to go.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Alderwoman Spencer, you're next. Do you have questions for firefighter Al?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Al, for being here today. Alderwoman Howard really addressed the questions I had, so I appreciate the opportunity, but I have no further questions at this time.
Okay, Alderwoman Boyd.
Thank you, Chair Bacall. Alderwoman Howard did ask the question. I think my concern is, and I kept hearing it, and I think Alderwoman Howard kept asking that, why haven't, if everything's in place, why haven't people been moved? Is it a management issue? Is it a staffing issue? They feel that if they move them, we won't have the staff to replace? I mean, what do you think? I put it that way, Al.
You know how I operate, Alderwoman Boyd. I don't want to put any presumptions out there, but here's what I will say that I've heard, okay? I heard that the fire chief has asked for the promotions, and the way it flows is he asks for the promotions, it goes to the Department of Personnel, they approve them, and then I believe that the Director of Public Safety signs off and it happens. So where we're at right now is that the chief has asked for them, and to my understanding, they were approved by the Department of Personnel. The Director of Public Safety will not sign off on them, and we're not sure why.
Oh, okay. All right. That's what I was trying to find out. All right. Who's dropping the ball? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Bosley, have you joined us? He's probably out right the minute. Alderman Oldenburg, I see you've joined us.
Yep. Nothing at this time. Thank you, Chairman.
Alderman Brett Narayan.
Thank you, Chairman Vaccaro. Just wanted to ask, it's because I was curious when Al kind of gave us the lay of the land, that it goes through personnel and then over to the Director of Public Safety. Could we invite the Director of Public Safety to come to this committee and let us know why these folks aren't being put in the positions that they're, it sounds like, entitled to be in?
So that's what I stated at the very beginning. I had given them pretty short notice that I wanted them at this meeting. So they said they would be at next week's meeting. That's what I said at the beginning.
Okay.
They will be here at next week's meeting. But I thought since firefighter Al came, I'd at least, let him talk about it. And then, and then next week we certainly want to ask those questions.
Perfect. Yeah, because I definitely would like to get some answers to that. And thank you, Al, for coming over as always. Thanks a lot. That's all I have.
Thank you. Good to see you, Brett.
Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard.
No questions. Thank you. I'll be looking forward.
Okay, and Alderman Page, are you still with us? I know he had another meeting to go to. Okay, we're all good. Al, thank you so much. Next week we are going to bring in, Dr. Isom and whoever, and certainly we're going to ask these questions. And if you have the ability to do so, we'll send you an invite again. If you so choose to come on, but if you can't make it, at least, we have this side of the story, and then, we'll have the opportunity to ask the questions as to why.
Yes, sir. I'll probably be able to make it. If not, I will send someone in my stay. We're talking about this because it has really affected us. But let me say this, guys, the chairman of Public Safety Committee and all committee members, I really do appreciate the opportunity, because we don't have a lot of answers why these things are being held up. And you guys working with us, giving us the opportunity, means a lot to us. We're just trying to find out what's going on, why it's going on. And we want to be fair to everyone and all of our members. And the most important thing, the citizens of St. Louis deserve to be served in the capacity that the St. Louis Fire Department is drawn up to serve them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on and we are going to ask Brian. Yeah, Brian, you're with us from MSD. And who else do we have? We have
Mr. Hadley.
yeah. So we have the two people, Shane and Brian from MSD with us. So a couple things, and I guess you have a presentation for us too.
Yes, sir.
And so, but I do have some questions that were sent to me and residents are asking me. So apparently, some of the people from Ellendale went to the trustees meeting the other day, and they were allowed to ask questions. And one of the things that I guess they said at that meeting, what MSD people said at that meeting is that MSD is now willing to buy out the homes from the people that are willing to want to sell. Is that factual?
No, sir.
So you're not willing to buy out the home.
That statement was never made.
Okay, well, that's the way they interpreted it. Is they said they felt that you said, so I guess they misinterpreted, because what they said is that you had said that. So there is nothing on MSD's part to buy out the homes that are flooded.
Yeah, sir. I think the presentation will put a lot of things in the context and get to that question. There are things that can be done, especially in coordination with the mayor's office, and the presentation would kind of cover that. I'm surprised that some walked away with that. I spoke directly to some, and I know they knew that was not the case. But the presentation might assist in that, unless you have other questions. I mean,
No. Let me go through the presentation, because certainly I know that when they tore up over there off McCausland, and they put in all that new, and all that was supposed to prevent those houses from being flooded, and I mean, all of a sudden they flooded, and I guess the other question I would have personally, they're not asking it because they didn't send that. I got all kinds of texts from folks over there, but what happened? Why did
yeah, the system, and again, I'll go over in the presentation that specific space because it's different from the rest of the city. Project was put in to make sure upstream stormwater was diverted off the system that ran through their neighborhood and went to River to Pear. And so when we have those kind of storms, that'll work. Where Ellendale is a little bit different than others, they're in the floodplain of River to Pear. They were flooded by River to Pear, and that's a different situation. So if River to Pear hadn't come up, you're right, those improvements would greatly reduce the chance of them getting impacted. Stormwater was intercepted above the system above them, ran around their neighborhood, discharged into River to Pear further downstream. If River to Pear hadn't resulted in a 100+ year flood, and they're located in the floodplain, one of the few locations in the city that are, it would have worked that way. Being in the floodplain is a different issue.
Well, let's do this. Let me go ahead and have you go through your presentation. And then we'll go through the members of the committee, for questions and answers. So if you want to share your screen.
Yes, I got it. Sean, my technical guru,
There you go,
is going
Sean.
to do that.
Okay. Sean, the technical guru, would you please?
Wave your hand, Sean.
There we
And
go.
get the W for the Cubs off the screen, if you would.
Oh, you know what, too? Because you're speakers, I have to swear you both in. I forgot to do that with Al, and I should have did that. Can you raise your right hand?
Yep.
Do you swear to tell the truth, or attest to tell the truth, so help you God? Or, I guess you do. You're not here to lie, are you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me have you go through your presentation. I am going.
Can you see that?
Yes.
You guys can see the presentation?
Yeah, yes, I can see the presentation.
Okay.
And I'm going to mute myself here.
Okay. So again, I'm Brian Holster. I'm the executive director and CEO at MSD. The presentation I'm going to give you was the overall presentation shared with the Sean. I don't know about anybody else, but the presentation just left. Did everybody else still see it?
I can see it.
Oh, there we go. Now I can see it, Sean. Is the one that we've been using to do some coordination with the mayor's office around the impacts of these 500-year floods we've seen. Quite honestly, we're doing this throughout the entire district. With a lot of municipalities, we've been meeting with a lot of folks trying to figure out what this is and what it means and how we move forward. So what I'm going to give you is specific to St. Louis. And since you brought up the Ellendale area, because it is unique compared to the rest of the area that got impacted, we'll make sure we address that specifically. Sean, go ahead and flip the page, the slide.
Is it not moving? Because I can't see it.
It's not moving. There you go. Yeah, just click on it, looks like. So the first 4 slides, and I'll go through relatively quickly, just what happened and what the impacts were we saw. Then we'll cover specifically the Ellendale area because it is unique from the others. We'll go over the work we've been doing for the last 15 plus years and we plan on doing in the future around flooding in the combined sewer area. The city is served by a combined sewer. Touch specifically on the Harlem and the Baden areas. They're the ones we start off first. They're up in North City, and an example of what we're doing. And it's a good example of kind of what the rest of the projects are. And then open for questions. I think it'll probably give a real good context to understand kind of where we are. And then obviously I'll answer any questions. And I guess, Chairman, I am okay with if folks have questions in the middle of the presentation, if they'd like to interrupt, that's perfectly fine with me.
I'll tell you what then, to members of the committee, normally we like to go through it, seniority down. But I think what I'll do is if someone on the committee, unless there's an objection to this, wants to just open their mic and ask a question, unless it gets where everybody's trying to ask something at the same time, I'll just go ahead and allow that. So if any member of the committee during the presentation wants to jump in, unless there's multiple people trying to jump in at one time, I will allow that. So just open your mic if you have something during the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Sean, if you go to the next page, we'll be quick here. This is a map of the rainfall that occurred on July 26th. The dark red is 9 to almost 10 inches and occurred between a 4 to 6 hour period. And obviously the lighter you get out to the green and the yellow to the north is less. That is a map of our service area. In case you don't know, we serve the city of St. Louis, which you can see on the right side next to Mississippi River in the dark outline. And then the rest of the area is bounded by the Merrimack River on the south, the Missouri River on the north. And then to the west, we can serve all of St. Louis County, but right now we only serve out to Highway 109 in Wildwood. Those are the rainfall intensities. Sean, if you, rainfall amounts, Sean, if you hit the next one, this is probably a little more telling. This slide is the rainfall intensities. You've heard of return occurrences like 25-year, 100-year, whatever. That purple is a 500-year storm, which means it's very, very rare. Mathematically, it's supposed to have a 0.2% chance of happening in any given year. And you can see pretty much the northern 2/3 of MSD got hit by a very, very hard storm. A lot of people who have never experienced flooding before, rightly so, experienced some kind of flooding. Sean, if you hit the next one. 2 days later, this is a map of the rainfalls, which are close to 4 inches, and then hit the intensity. Sean, I think that's probably more the frequency. So that light purple is a 100-year storm, and that occurred 2 days later. It occurred when the creeks were full, it occurred when the ground was saturated, and obviously it caused significantly more flooding as well. And then Sean, if you'll hit the, why don't you skip the rainfall amounts, just go to the intensity screen. And on August 6th or August 4th, I'm sorry, another storm came through, hit the southern part of our district and a small part in the near West County area, got hit by another 500-year storm. These all look a little bit different depending on the terrain, the type of systems that are in place, where the homes are built. But pretty much the whole area got a big enough storm that folks, again, who have never been flooded before, experienced flooding. You go to the next one, Sean, just a quick summation. Throughout the district, and this is probably a week and a half old, we've had about 12,000 service requests. When people get flooded, they'll call us. We do have a program that if the flooding is solely caused by the backup of the sewer system, even if it's overland flooding anywhere that caused it, if the home is just impacted only by backup in the basement, we have an insurance program that pays $3,000 with a $100 deductible. And then of those calls, about half of them were other kind of stormwater problems, flooded streets, blocked inlets, overflowing manholes, those types of things. That is district-wide. Go ahead and hit the map, Sean. Won't spend much time on the next two. That's just a map of where all the calls came from throughout our service area. And then, Sean, the next one, specific to St. Louis, that's what it looked like on St. Louis from July 25th to July 26th, kind of where all the calls came in. So what I'm going to go do is go ahead and start in some of the specific areas that are really representative of where the problems were and what some of the programs are that we've already been doing for a couple decades. So Sean, if you hit the next one, this is a map of the Ellendale area. And since we were talking about, we'll talk about this. The line that goes from the upper right to down at the bottom, that is river to pair. The blue area you see there is the 100-year floodplain of river to pair. So when river to pair gets up to a certain height, that area will flood because it's in the river to pair watershed. It's in the river to pair floodplain. The green, dark green line you draw is approximately the area that flooded during the July 26th storm. And I think again, during July 28th, we have some pictures, I think, showing that. So what's different about this site is that much of the city and the combined sewer isn't located in a floodplain. This is somewhat similar to the flooding situations we see in the counties. Where MSD is on fighting this issue just out of floodplain flooding, we've tried 3 times to have a funding mechanism put in place. The latest was in 2019. The public voted no 53-47 to give us the funds to assist the individual municipalities and counties who are the floodplain managers to resolve a lot of these issues, primarily by buyouts. So MSD right now has no funds purely because of the flooding from river to pair. We don't have any funds to do buyouts right now. We're going to go back again and try in August 2024. However, next slide, Sean. With the flooding that occurred in the area, what we do have the opportunity to occasionally for the wastewater program, the wastewater funding, is we're building facilities to address wastewater issues. They are very sustainable and we can design them to withstand existing within floodplains. And whenever we have a possibility or a chance to do this, we will offer buyouts to folks who are located in the area of the construction that's needed for the wastewater project. This is something, what you're seeing outlined here is an area that will be used for a shaft for a CSO tunnel that will go down the middle of river to pair, underneath river to pair. And in that footprint, there's 4 existing homes that after looking after the flood, and we're getting to the point of considering what to do with this site. Right now, we're going to be offering those 4 folks, those 4 properties, buyouts in the wastewater system to accommodate the construction of our structures.
Can I ask, what are the addresses on those? Where is it? Look, I can't see because it's very small on my screen. So boy, those 4 that you're talking about buyouts, what are those addresses?
I'm trying to find my.
And I guess, so you have some money for buyouts, it's just not.
Well, correct. We have monies to buy properties out when they're needed for wastewater needs, because we have to improve the wastewater system.
Okay, cool. I understand. So what are those addresses?
Oh, shoot. Sean, can I commit that you'll send the addresses?
Yeah, I could tell them. I mean, I could see them. It's
Well, can you say them? Go ahead.
they're all on Odell Street, and they're, I'll have to send them to them because I can't
That's hard
zoom
to see.
in. I can't
All
zoom
right.
in with it's for some reason it's not letting us, it's not giving me a full screen share.
That's fine.
So I
Go ahead. Go ahead and if you would send me those addresses, I'd like.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and what we're telling you now has not been relayed to the citizens yet, because it's something we just determined since we last met last Thursday with the folks from the Ellendale area. So this occurs throughout the district. I know mention was made of a foam company that's located kind of this Ellendale area. Same reason there. When that property became available for sale, it's the downstream end of another tunnel that's coming from up in the north, and it's an ideal spot for us to put a landing spot for a pump station to collect a tunnel that's coming from another direction. So we do this. This has occurred in the city. It's occurred in Jennings, St. Anne, throughout the district. Whenever we have a chance to use our wastewater systems, at the same time we can solve some flooding problems, we go ahead and do that. But right now, the plan is for our wastewater needs, we'll do this. I will let you know we are meeting with the city, with the mayor's office, about what are other options for working in the floodplain. And we'll continue to meeting with the mayor's office to see if we can come to some solutions to try and take care of some of the other folks. And that's where we stand right now with regard to this. And I think I'll mention the sewer system a little bit since it came up. If you're taking a look at this area, there's a large watershed that drains through this neighborhood and discharges to River de Pear. Like I said, we previously, you can't see where it's at. I think it's, matter of fact, I think it's the red line that goes to the left. Previously, we had taken an express sewer to intercept just stormwater to the northwest of this area that normally drained through here, intercepted it, took it down, took the sewer underneath the Arsenal Bridge and discharged next to Slade Park, just stormwater. And that kept that stormwater from going through their system. Without the flooding from River de Pear, that would have had a great impact on the system. It would have taken all that water, wouldn't have had to go through their area. We would have greatly reduced any kind of backup issues that may have come. But unfortunately, that all didn't mean anything as soon as River de Pear came out of banks and flooded this floodplain. Sean, if you go to the next slide and make it smaller, there we go. So I wanted to mention that one specifically because there's not a whole lot of places in the city where there's flooding due to floodplain issues. It's something we deal with throughout the rest of our district, obviously, but not so much in the city. So Ellendale is a little bit different. In general, we do have something called a city shed mitigation program. When we signed our consent decree, which is now a $6 billion consent decree in 2011, we assigned monies as an environmental justice component of our consent decree to try and put extra dollars towards flooding caused by surcharging combined sewers. It requires a consent decree and expenditure of $230 million. We need to do that over a 28-year period. Right now, we've expended $80 million of that, taking care of areas that traditionally flooded. We're starting in North City. It's most of it's there. I'll show you some examples later. Here you can see some of the different type of projects, whether there's actually a larger, whether we separate the system. So instead of combined, it's separate storm and sanitary. Some are just simply buyouts because they're in the wrong place. There are some basins that'll then help people downstream and different projects like that. Some examples of these projects, Sean, you go to the next one if you would. Make sure I get to my notes here. Oh, I'm sorry. And so and it's hard to see some of these dots, but the blue dots and even some of the yellow dots are areas that we had previously identified when we had the $230 million pot in working with the mayor's office at the time we signed the consent decree. here's where we think the areas are, coordinating with them. They agreed, we're moving forward. We're in the process right now of meeting with the mayor's office and saying, should there be some change in priorities? Are these all the right locations? Are there other places we need to look at? Has this storm and maybe changes in the area resulted in us needing to plan to spend our dollars elsewhere? Right now, we're meeting with the mayor's office to see if there needs to be any adjustment in those priorities. Sean, if you go to the next one. So examples of what we're doing. This is probably the best one. It's only been at the longest. It's called the Horseshoe Project. It's off Natural Bridge Road at Clara. If you see the upper left-hand red area, that's a large basin. We bought out something called the Ebert Mars subdivision. I think it was 78 or 80 homes. It was an area that consistently flooded. It was in kind of a floodplain is where it was. All the homes were bought out. We were actually approached by the mayor's office and a member of the board of aldermen at the time about, hey, can we use this? And it was an area we were actually looking at because it's what used to be the intersection of two open streams before it got all enclosed in and the area got developed. That's why the flooding's going on there. So we're extending this. The green areas you see are simply green space. The upper left-hand is the Horseshoe. The other red ones are various basins we built. And you'll notice the blue line that's going through there. That's where, best we can tell, the creek used to be prior to this area getting developed. So the reason I really like this one is to try and help understand what is the issue we're going after. Prior to St. Louis being built, there were rivers, creeks, and streams throughout the area. As it got developed, sewers got put in the creeks and streams, covered over, streets built, homes built. Now that doesn't make the floodplain, or what used to be the floodplain, go away. When we get very, very heavy storms, you're still going to get above ground flooding. What we're doing is going back and taking the system that was originally built by the city and trying to do some things with it to help the situation. This is a good example of that. Again, the red areas are basins where we bought out homes, and they're the low spots, good place to put basins in. Green is natural green area. Go to the next slide, Sean, if you would. This is a view from the southeast of that basin. If you've ever seen it, it's got multiple purposes. First of all, we've eliminated the low area was in there. We bought all those homes out right in front of the Baptist church. The area to the north, which has combined sewers, similar to what we did for some of the areas in Ellendale, we're separating the sewers. We're getting just the storm water and express piping it to this basin and keeping it out of the combined sewer system. That will allow folks north of this or northwest of this site to prevent them from flooding themselves. The other thing this does is it holds water that normally would go down and surcharge the sewer downstream to the southeast, as you saw the river and the other improvements. So it's got a multi-function. We're in the middle of it. We have funding. The Corps of Engineers has been a real good partner in providing federal funding for a lot of these. We just simply keep building this system out as funding becomes available in the area. Sean, if you go to the next slide, this kind of explains what I just indicated. That Horseshoe area is area 1 on the right-hand side. And again, there's improvements being done up above. That green hatchet and pink hatchet are the separate storm sewers or the combined sewer, but also these areas are being separated so that storms water can be directed instead of going to combined sewer and possibly causing backups. The water is being sent directly to the basin. What the basin does is it holds the water. Then after the storm's gone and the sewer has capacity, you'll slowly bleed that flow back into the system. Go ahead, Sean. And then downstream, as we run into areas, this is a status shot of where we're at in Ashland. This is some of the downstream ones. We'll identify areas that are in low places. It requires coordination with the mayor's office and the planning office. Here's the ones we see. Is this an okay place to do buyouts? Buy the homes out with the intent being that we'll put basins in, not only to help relieve the folks who live there, It also relieve the other folks who live in the area and downstream by intercepting some of the stormwater and keep those sewer systems from surcharging for everybody else. It's not a property buyout system per se. The purpose of the project is to eventually have basins and to resolve the wastewater issue. It's not a flooding buyout program. Sean, if you go to the next one, one more slide, folks. And this is just another area up near Calvary Cemetery. It's a series, kind of the same area. What we've done in pink is indicated the areas that were traditionally flooding because they were located in the low areas where the combined sewer was built, probably where a creek and stream was at one time. And we're buying out those properties, putting in small basins. Again, the people who live in those low areas, we're getting them out. We're providing basin areas so we can hold the water and provide additional relief and additional capacity for the homes that live around there and the homes that also live downstream. And these two are kind of typical of the type of processes we'll go through as we look as to the appropriate places to spend the $230 million for combined sewer surcharging in the combined sewer system. Chairman, that was what I was doing, was just to give a basis. Again, this is what we shared with the mayor's office. There's a lot of data behind this we're sharing with them, but that's what I had for the presentation.
So two things. One, if you can unshare the screen, but I did look in, of course, I received texts too through all this. The one question is, on the 4 houses you're buying out, there's one at 6931. If you don't buy it out, it'll be the only house left on the north side of the street. So I'd like you to at least consider including that, since you're taking the other 4 out next to it.
So we'll add that to the list. What I gave you was technically what's needed for the wastewater system. Invariably, we do refine that, and we are having continuing meetings with the mayor's office about what else can be done in that area, but we'll make sure we put that on the list.
Please, if you would.
We will do that.
Okay, so what I think I'll do, since I didn't see any hands during the meeting or anybody jump in, I think what I'll do is I'll go down the list in the list of order of seniority as people are here. So let me get on my list here. I'm sorry. Alderman Davis is excused. So Alderwoman Howard, you're first on the list.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Spencer, you're next on the list.
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
Brian and Sean, no, I do have questions and I have concerns. And so the question that I have at this flooding was not the norm, I put it that way. But Brian, we North Point community by Calvary Cemetery has always been a flooding area. Senator Paula Carter worked with you all back in the day about the basins in Calvary Cemetery to start to try to diffuse some of the flooding, and it did not stop. It just continuously kept going. And my feelings were, and I did express it to you and to Sean, it was because of the systems that we have are so old. And so you all are patching areas. And so it's weakening the other areas because they're so old. I too have talked to the mayor's office in regards to legislation, in regards to infrastructure for the city as a whole, because of the lines that we have, sewer and water, that are so old, and they can't hold the pressure that we have in our city. I'm fearful that this winter, we're going to have busted pipes with the water department. And in my ward, we had several blocks where MSD had to come in with the water department to kind of work with to rebuild those areas. So my question is, one, and I kept hearing the other area in the city that everybody kept focusing on, but the first question, how are we going to solve the North Point flooding issue? And then two, everybody is aware that Walnut Park East was hit and never have they ever been hit and flooding. And so it had a snowball effect on those residents. So me personally, and I can't say what everybody else thinks, but I think it's because MSD has not been diligently flushing those sewer lines out. And so that played a big impact. And so I'm going to take some responsibility for my community because a lot of those sewer outlets have trash in them. So that's what kind of compromised the flooding also, because the lines, it was just too much water and they couldn't get through. But I just want to know, what is MSD looking to do? Because the only response that my residents kept getting from MSD before the flooding was, it's not your problem, it's the residents' problem. And so I'm dealing with 70 and 80-year-old seniors, and they can't afford that. So I'm just trying to find out what's the plan to
Yeah.
sort of addressing this.
Okay, and this has been, it's actually part of our consent decree as well. So, and the federal government's actually monitoring this. The systems themselves are in very good shape. They get regular TV, they get regular cleaning, they get, when we see any distress, we go in and do the repairs. So the systems, the Msd Sewer Systems, I understand the problem with city water, that's kind of a different one, but our systems are actually in place and working very well. They're working better than they ever have since I've been here for the last 25 years. We're actually doing something we probably should have been doing for a long time, is keeping them clean. Couple of the items you mentioned, and then I'll get to the storm. You're right, keeping inlets clean, even though we have a regular program to inspect and clean them, they get filled with trash. And we can't go do them every 30 days. If we know a big storm's coming, we try and get what are usually the problem areas. And I know a lot of people get impacted because the flooding just can't get into the sewers, the storm water, and it causes problems. So we need to keep working that. The only thing I would mention is we're having this discussion with everybody. We're not going to engineer our way out of the 500-year storm. Probably the first discussion we have to have is, has that storm shown us where we probably shouldn't have properties? And what does that mean? And we need to start that discussion. There's some very easy places. I would put Ellendale, especially if we had funding, is a very easy place, especially on mapped floodplains. Homes shouldn't be there. We wouldn't allow them built today. There's just some things that are legacy issues we have to address. But what we're going to do with the next 500-year storm that comes through, whether that's 5 years, 50 years, or 500 years, whenever the next one comes, we're going to see the same thing again. And so it's one of the reasons we're talking with the mayor's office. One of the reasons we're talking with all the other 90 municipalities in the area, because they all have the same issue, not identical to yours. But what are we going to do? Where are we going to take care of these? Because in the end, you can't just engineer your way out of a lot of this. The starting place is to find places where there should not be development and let Mother Nature kind of run its course. So I don't have an answer for you in the big picture. We'll keep working our way through this, but we're making sure everything we do now is really sustainable for this type of event as best as we can. Not a 500-year event, but as sustainable as we can for any kind of large event that would happen.
So my question is, how are you all putting the sewer lines? Is it on their own schedules, or?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. And so how is that happening? Because I'm telling you, Brian, in Walnut Park East, those sewer lines hadn't been cleaned. And so I'm riding, looking, and one was so bad that the outlet was broke. And because we kept smelling something, I kept saying, well, what is the smell? And so when MSD went, they said, well, the inlet is broke. So it took them almost a year to even correct that. So we had streets that were flooding before storms. And I went straight to the residents and I said, well, when have you called to get the inlet cleaned out? And they were like, well, we didn't know we were supposed to call. So I was literally going through Walnut Park East calling to get those inlets flushed. So that's why I'm trying to find out, how is the schedule done? How are we included in the rotation?
So I would have to check, and again, I'll check with my director of operations. I'm going to take a chance and give you my guess here. I think the inlets are a 1 to 2 year cycle for cleaning. That's when they get cleaned. The sewers are on something longer than that, and the sewers don't need as much attention. It's not just cleaning, but it's also televising. It's fixing if we identify issues. But there are going to be problems that happen in between those. And I appreciate you reporting them. Should we get to them faster than that? We should, and we should do better. So I'll apologize if it actually took that long. I don't really think it should. But I would ask, keep reporting it. And Alderwoman, and you have no problem mentioning to us. We've got the location. Sean's heard what they were. I think we'll get back to you in that specific area. Just, I don't know why it would have taken so long. It probably shouldn't have. And I don't know why.
Yeah, it was a 5200 block of Robin. So I know that's where it was. And so what I started doing, I just started going block to block, and certain blocks, not Walnut Park East hadn't been touched, but in Walnut Park West and North Point, it's certain blocks over there. I know MSD has been there because your markings are there. And some areas, I'm like, okay, it's like they come in here every other month because I'm constantly seeing the markings. But it's some, Brian, where I'm telling you, they have not been there, I can say in years, truthfully, because that's how I'm looking at the outlet, the inlet. So I'll keep doing what I'm doing. But that was just kind of discerning to me that it took that long for that inlet. And the resident kept calling and nothing happened. And then when I got involved, then they started giving me reports. So I'm just kind of concerned because that area seems to be continuously ignored. And I don't like that. I really don't. Those residents don't deserve that.
So just for your information, since you brought it up, the inlets are cleaned in a 1 to 2 year cycle, and you'll see no markings. The markings are because they're checking the sewers that are connecting them. That helps them mark what reach. So don't think that cleaning the sewers is the marking. The marking is a much longer frequency of going through actually inspecting the sewers, not necessarily the inlets. So
it's green writing. So I don't know what that is. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing.
It helps them mark in the field besides on their maps, helps them mark what reach have we hit now, and then they record the information.
And then in defense of you all on the Walnut Park East, because Walnut Park East has never flooded. And so the only reason why my understanding it flooded was because the highway flooded, because those outlets were full of trash. And so it just overflowed into that community. And so that's what, my understanding was. I was proud of those residents because they came together and they took care of business to clean their areas out. But it was kind of mind-boggling to them because they never flooded before. So I literally had to explain. But I'm really focusing in on those outlets. And so I'll just keep calling to let people know where I see them.
And I guarantee you, Alderwoman, we'll pass the information on to Brett, make sure something's not askew, but we'll get you information specifically on that site, what the frequency was. It's also a possibility, if folks hadn't been reporting ahead of time, we do accelerate inspection on problem areas. If we don't get the reports, they don't get on the expedited list. So,
and I told them that. I said,
we'll check all that out.
Yeah. And so Sean was bringing me some information so I could pass out to residents to know who they call, when they call. So I'm just waiting on that information because I really want to educate them. Because I'm telling you, when I told a resident, I said, well, do you call to get your outlets clean? And he said, I didn't know we were supposed to do it. So I'm just trying to educate them. Okay, make the calls, but this is the number you need to call to get that service. So it's an education on both ends.
The outlet, you're talking about the street inlets, right?
Right.
Okay, all right. We'll make sure we're talking about the same thing. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I'm just trying to do so I can make sure that they have the information in hand so they can't, if people can find a way to make an excuse, they will. So I'm the person, I'm not going to give them the excuse. I'll make sure I give you as much information so I can say, no, I gave it to you did you use that to your benefit?
Right. Yeah. And then we need to properly use it. I agree with you.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Shane had his hand up. Was there?
No,
something?
he sent me the information.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put it in
Okay,
chat
and
for
then,
you.
and then a lot of, I keep getting texts throughout this, but Brian, someone just sent me, it was a thing just saying that, well, I can read it exactly. It says you're being untruthful. They have photos showing the black sewers on Odell. People didn't even know existed and didn't ever get them cleaned out. They're saying that they have photos of the black sewers that, that's something I, maybe if, shoot me, maybe I'll shoot you those pictures and maybe
Okay.
that might help you in your decisions on stuff because,
Sure.
you know, and again, I get texts throughout the meeting, so
Okay.
I'm gonna keep going down the list. So Alderman Bosley, did you join us? I think he's still out. Alderman Oldenburg.
No, I have nothing. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Chairman Vaccaro. Yeah, I do have some concerns and then some questions. I represent the Ellendale neighborhood here in the city, and one of the things that I've continually heard about the flooding in Ellendale is that it's all about the River de Pere breaching its banks and flooding homes there. And you know, I'm certainly not an engineer or anything, and so there's a lot that I don't know about sewer systems, but we have videos of sewer lids blowing off. We have houses that backed up with sewage, and they're being blamed on River de Pere. Some of these are several blocks away from River de Pere, and so this isn't flood water that was damaging these homes. There are several feet oftentimes of raw sewage in the basement of homes. And I'm just kind of curious as to why MSD has said the entire time that this is due to River de Pere and some of it certainly was, you know, right next to River de Pere, that was pretty clearly flood water. I was there, you know, as it was happening. And so I know that, you know, the river did breach its banks and flood some homes, but there's a lot of flooding around there that doesn't seem directly tied to the River de Pere also. And I'd be curious to hear you weigh in on that.
No, that's a good thing to explain. So first of all, and you've probably heard this before, there are no flood control structures on River de Pere. There are no pumps in Ellendale area. All it is a gate structure. And quite honestly, all it's meant to do is keep the River de Pere from flooding back into the area and interrupting wastewater collection when there is no rain. So this is the way it kind of builds, if you think of it. When an area gets flooded, remember the sewer system gets flooded as well. That outfalls under a lot of feet of water. The sewer system gets filled up. So already where that water is supposed to be going out is filling up with water in the sewer system. You've also got all the sewer that's coming from up the hill to the northwest coming down into the area. I have no doubt you see the sewer lids blowing off. Once that water from higher elevations coming into the system and it hits the level that River de Pere has flooded the sewer system, it's going to pop manhole lids, it's going to fill basements. That is not different than anything else, quite honestly, we see throughout the entire district. It happens in University City, it happens in Webster Groves, it happens everywhere. That is what happens. The issue is when there are homes that for whatever reason are built in floodplains, and we have to have a sewer system. If the area floods, and this did, and the floodplain fills, the sewer system gets flooded. And it's really a major issue. It's like, yeah, it's slightly, as you saw the description, it's different than going down the middle of North County, where the creeks were originally much smaller, the sewers are much smaller. It's a different situation. This is River de Pere filling up the area. And so that's what they were seeing when that was going on.
And so So some years back, I know there were backflow preventers installed there. Did those backflow preventers do what they were supposed to do?
So if River to Pear hadn't filled up, yes, they would have. Again, backflow preventers were put in, and that's so when the sewer charges somewhat, we're able to prevent the water from going in. Again, we've got this bypass, I think it's a 72-inch sewer that's intercepting water from the Maplewood area on down that drains through this neighborhood. And we've expressed it to River to Pear so that doesn't go through. So absent of flooding River to Pear that floods the outfall to the Ellendale area, things are much better than they were in the past. It's the level of River to Pear, and we got the FOD on the 26th and 28th. They came out of banks both days, and I feel for the folks that got hit with the double whammy. Now, and I think there's a good time for us to take responsibility for what happened in 2015. We had a mistake on our part. Our staff made a terrible mistake. They were working on the gates that protect the structure from the river. And when they're being worked on, those gates are supposed to be left open in case it rains. And our gentleman at the time left them closed. And so there was no River to Pear. And we tried best we could to take care and compensate people for that mistake. But that was something that's kind of different. Well, it is a lot different than what happened here this past summer. And I think, Alderman, I think, we're going to have a meeting. Matter of fact, I see on some of the correspondence, I think now we're trying to set up to answer every detailed question folks have had either at the meeting or if they sent in since. And we'll try to take care of that.
Can you tell me, has there been any discussion or any thought about a levee being built along parts of River to Pear the same way like we see at Germania at 55?
So MSD is not the flood control entity. That's a floodplain control issue. It's responsibility of the city. City, the same way the city runs a flood wall along the Mississippi River. They do the sandbagging along River to Pear when the water gets up. That's a decision the city can make as to whether or not they want to construct a levee to protect that area. The thing that would have to happen is we'd have to make sure we provided provisions, because then now MSD, if somebody decides to protect that, something's going to have to be done so we can pump our flows out when the river's high. There's no pumps there. It's just a gravity flow. That's something, and this is not just here, this is throughout the entire district, all 90 municipalities we work with. If those floodplain entities decide to do that, that's a decision they can make on their own. And we'll obviously have to work with them.
Understood. So I know we discussed some buyouts earlier, particularly I guess those several houses right down on Odell. My understanding is that MSD is that their hands are a bit tied on buyouts due to just finances in general.
Just no fun, and it's even just no funds. It's not even financial considerations. The public's voted no for us to be participating in that.
Sure. So if there were additional funds, would the footprint of that project look different? Would you be buying out more houses if you could?
So the project would look the same. Again, we're just doing what's needed for the wastewater system. Those additional funds I'm talking about would actually be stormwater funds to address flooding in floodplains, for instance. And so be completely separate of the project. And it would be just a consideration of folks, you're in floodplains, you're getting flooded. Here's the monies, it's important, let's buy folks out. I know I mentioned I don't think this got confused. I can't remember the couple I spoke to. The question came up, what if there'd been a positive vote in 2019? We've been collecting $30 million a year for the last blank years. With this event, I suspect there's a real good chance we would just turn around and said, here's a good example, not just here, but in a lot of places. People are ready, let's buy things out. Now, we'll only buy on the floodplains as long as the floodplain managers agree. Usually that's not a problem. Sometimes cities don't want us to do that, but we would coordinate with the city. And I think, again, Alderman, we're working with the city to see if there's something that can be done. We got another meeting tomorrow. Not the city, the mayor's office, I'm sorry, working with the mayor's office to see, is there a source of funding? Is there a way we can make this work? And hopefully we've got a couple options we can look at.
And so I know, in the past that there wasn't, the 8 feet of water that we saw there on these couple of events. Would a pump station on Odell in Ellendale, would that help prevent? Because those floodwaters came up alarmingly fast, I'll say,
Yeah.
to the point where people had difficulty getting out of their homes. The fire department had difficulty getting to people, and that's a pretty scary thing to have the water levels rise that fast in your home while you're sleeping. So I'd certainly be for anything that would kind of slow down or prevent that from happening in the future. I know, water's a pretty powerful force, and
Right.
it's much stronger than anything that men have built so far. But would a pump station prevent this from happening in the future at that location?
Yeah, for the volume you're talking, probably not. I will tell you, if going back for those of you who've experienced Hurricane Ike that came through here in 2007, 2008, the discussion started with some of the local representatives and floodplain managers about putting, if nothing else, a warning system in place, whether it's for, what's coming down the sewer, what's going up in the rivers and streams. Never went anywhere. We're going to drive and make sure that's part of the discussion now. Do we need to have at specific locations some kind of warning system that the river's coming up, or in rare instances where, and again, I would prefer this area got purchased, but around Odell, that's one where maybe, hey, there's a massive amount of water coming down the sewer. Odell is one of those few places, or Ellendale is one of those few places that might be a possibility, because the best part is just to not have people in them. But that's something we'll have a discussion about. Is there something like that? The idea of just providing a pump large enough for the instantaneous flow of that amount of water, I don't think that's a practical solution. I think being warned or not being there is probably quite honestly, being not being there is the best solution.
Understood. And that's all I have. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Shameen Clark-Hubbard.
Yeah, I didn't have any additional questions, but just to Alderwoman Boyd's point, and while we have this audience and this platform, I wanted to see if Director Hostler, I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong.
Close
and
enough.
Mr. Hadley can give the information, the contact information or the response information that we can share with our constituents and we can share on this live, so that it empowers and educates them. I know a lot of this work is going to be reactive, but I'd rather have them be armed with it so that we can be prepared.
So does that mean by just chatting it out to you, or showing it to the folks who are watching, or make sure I understand?
Speaking it so that it can be captured on the live, because this airs live through STL TV. Yeah, and then we can share the whole presentation and this information as well.
Sean, can you pull up like the website information? Or
Yeah, what I can do is I can do that, and I can also tell you the customer service number that you're asking for is 314-768-6260, and that's manned 24 hours. So if you have like an inlet issue or something like that, that's the number you can call. It's 314-768-6260. And then, I can share the website, which is msdprojectclear.org. Again, it's msdprojectclear.org.
Thank you so much. And I did want to publicly thank you all for coming and canvassing the areas in the 26th ward that got hit really badly and connecting with those constituents, and hopefully continuing to work with them as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for showing up. Does anyone else, any alder person that's in here that is not on the committee, do you have a question for these guys before we let them go? I see no hands, pictures, or anything else. Alderwoman Boyd, I noticed you had your hand up for a minute earlier. You took it down.
No, my questions was answered, and I know how to contact Brian and Sean. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Brian and Sean, thank you guys both for coming in and answering our questions. We might have you come back at a later date, maybe if a lot of constituents from the different areas that flooded may want to talk. maybe ones that couldn't make it to the board meeting. So we might bring you back if you're so willing to do. And other than that, I thank you guys for coming out today. And we'll just see y'all later. And thank you for your work.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So, let's see, we have no other business. I know that we have a few excused older people. I know that Alderwoman Davis and Alderwoman Tyus and Alderman Page was here but had to leave, and Alderman Bosley, so we'll excuse all of them for not being able to make it. At this point, we'll take a motion to adjourn, or does anyone else have anything that they want to bring up? So we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you all for showing up, and we'll see you next week.